Hello, and thank you everyone for joining me today. I am super humbled, grateful, and super excited to have Dr. John Demartini, one of my favorite old-time educators in human behavior, who has taught me so much. You have really transformed my life more than you'll ever know, not just today, not just this weekend, not just through the breakthrough experience that we just did together. You have taught me so much as a parent, how to learn about values, how to live in my values, how to recognize my children's values and allow them to live in theirs, how to balance that out. And I think today I've learned, like this weekend, particular today, I've learned so much how to apply that even more. And I really would love to bring some of your teachings to parents in general and plant seeds for them and kind of give them a little bit of a breadcrumbs to come and learn more about this the way that I have. So if you don't mind, I've got a few questions for you.
Perfect. Great.
All around parenting. We're going to focus a lot on parenting because that's what I do and that's what I love. So what I would love to know from your perspective is how can a parent recognize their children's values?
Okay. I'm glad you're asking that because some parents don't take the time to even consider that. They just assume they're responsible for giving them the values. And that's not unwise to socialize them, but it's a lot easier to impart new ideas to people when you know what's valuable to them. Everything starts with a sale. Believe it or not, you're selling your ideas to your kids, your children. You're selling your ideas to your spouse because you're taking the time to respectfully communicate what you value and what you want in terms of what they value and what they want. So finding out what the child's values is brilliant, smart. You'll have less disobedience, less fighting, less labels, all kind of things. So it's the same as with adults. You look at how they fill their space. Even young little children will put things in their space that they want and push things away. And if you give them something, they'll push it out if they don't want it in their space. So if you look carefully at what they have in their space, we had a lovely girl that was about 8 that had horses everywhere, little plastic horses. And her life was about horses, and it was showing up in her space. Another person may have video games. Another person may have sports, baseball cards or something like that. So you look at how they fill their space. You look at how they want to spend their time spontaneously when there's nothing expected on them. Just what do they love to do and spend their time on? You look at what they're energized by, because they'll come alive and go get awake when they're around something that's important to them. And they'll start to go withdraw and introvert when it's not. If they're old enough to interact with money, you'll find out what they want to buy, and you'll find out what they'll ask to make money or get money for to get. And that'll tell you an indication, because they're not going to pay money for something that they don't value. Then you look at what they are most organized. What is most organized in their life? And by looking at what's organized, like those little horses on the little girl, all of them were organized. And you can see that they're all structured because they value things and they put order to it. Then you look at what is most disciplined. What is the thing that they spontaneously do that you don't never have to remind them to do? Never have to remind them to do. When I was very young, baseball. I would spontaneously do baseball. I also, for some reason, liked plants. And I used to work in the yard and plant flowers and work in the yard and do all kind of stuff because I love plants. But whatever you spontaneously do, that the boy or girl will do that. It tells you. And it may be dolls, it may be, horses, it may be whatever.
And that changes over time.
And it changes, every quarter you can see some slight shifting going on. So if you're not liking it, instead of making it wrong, if they're inspired to do what it is. There's a young boy named Jacob Barnett whose mother recognized that he loved drawing little mathematical things. And she just kept giving him stuff relating to mathematics. And by the time he was a teenager, he was at Perimeter in Waterloo, Ontario, was getting his PhD. And Terence Tao the same way, from Adelaide. He's one of the leading geniuses in mathematics because from a young age he just loved it. And his mother, instead of making it wrong, you need to do this and that, she just kept feeding that.
That was going to be my next question, is how can we teach our children
Exactly.
to live in their values then?
Well, then after you look at what they're most disciplined in, you look at what they think about most, about how they want their life that's showing evidence of coming true. Because when it's really important, they'll make things come true. They'll work towards it and they'll figure out how to get it done. The same thing for visualization, the same thing for their internal dialogue. What are they talking to themselves about most? And what are they visualizing about what they want? You can ask them. They'll tell you. What do you visualize? What are you seeing for yourself?
I'm laughing because we do this with our kids.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
And then you look at what they want to converse about with other people and ask questions. So if you meet them, they'll go, how's this? How's that? They want to know about what's important to them. They'll ask questions about it and they'll want to talk about it. And then you look at what it is that inspires them. And you see them glued to people that are doing what it is they love doing. They'll just sit there for hours and watch them and look on YouTubes now and they'll watch them and they'll spend hours doing it. Then you look at what their goals are that are coming true, the most persistent, consistent goals that they keep putting focus on. And the last thing is, what do they spontaneously want to learn about, read about, study about, watch on YouTube's videos? What do they want to investigate? And how they're going to want to learn about it. They're thirsty to know what's important to them, but not necessarily what everybody else is expecting them to learn. Yeah. So beware of the labels, because I had a child that was told, his teachers were saying, you got this problem, this problem, this problem. And I just said, you have no idea what you're talking about. That kid is a genius in his area, but you're not presenting the classes in a way that's matching his area. If you did, he'd take that class in. My daughter, same age I was told that I would never read and write and all that stuff. My daughter had the same thing, seven years old, same exact thing. And a teacher looked at me and said, well, I'm afraid your daughter's got problems, she's not learning anything else. And I almost burst out laughing. I said, you have no idea how grateful I am for this. He goes, what? Do you not care about your daughter? And it was just really a big thing for them. Yeah. I said, no, I know my daughter's going to do fine because of what you're doing. And she's a professional speaker and reader and researcher today. She does amazing things. But what was happening is they were teaching things in a way that was uninspiring, that didn't match what her values were. They weren't cared about her values. And so they were putting a label on her and saying there's a problem. When she was absorbing and learning everything she wanted to learn about, so she didn't have a learning problem. But they thought she did because it wasn't matching what they thought was important.
It's like that quote, if you tell a fish to climb a tree, then it'll spend its life thinking it's stupid,
yes,
rather than actually going.
Allow it to go out and swim.
And do what it needs to do.
Yeah, I'm a teacher. I do that. If I had to cook, I would fail. It's not my thing. I delegate cooking. I delegate all low priority stuff.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So tell me then, as parents, okay, how do we come back in living in our values and managing our values versus obligation and responsibility to our kids? Because I know I struggled a little bit with this in the beginning, and I've read Your Values Factor, which is one of my favorite books, and I've learned to actually, relink? So bring value to the things that were of lower value, but I would actually match them up to things that were of high value to me, like my children. So, doing the dishes became fun and a different experience to the label that I was putting to it before. How can you explain that and help parents understand their values, but, balance that with obligation and responsibility without feeling?
Well, I'm going to make a statement here that's not going to be appreciated by some parents. But responsibility is based on whoever you subordinate to.
So we subordinate to our children?
No. Responsibility is whoever you subordinate to. So let's say you have I'll use an example, if you have a pope with a Catholic rules. Yeah. If you subordinate to the pope, and if you follow those rules, you're a good person. If you don't, you're bad, and you feel proud or shamed, yes. Right? Because you're given power to that. Yes. But depending on who it is that you subordinate to and put up to sets the rules that you follow, and if you don't set your own rules, you follow somebody else's rules, you do, that's where your responsibilities are coming from. And so society automatically projects whatever values people subordinate to onto you and try to get you into these little boxes. But the children sometimes have their own path, and they may or may not always do what the parents always expect. And so you can make that wrong and you can punish them and everything else, but sometimes they already know what they want to do at a young age. I mean, I met a boy at age 4, he knew he wanted to be a brain surgeon. he didn't care about studying anything else except things that would help him in brain surgery. By the time he was 13, he'd already been in the hospitals with the brain surgeon studying it. He'd read every book in South Africa on brain surgery. He already knew what he's doing. He already knew he was going to be the greatest brain surgeon in the world. And he started on it at a very young age, 4 years old. And he is accomplishing that. So his parents finally realized that, oh, you need to go and make sure you do well in school because you need to maybe you need a job and everything. He has no interest in that. He was interested in doing that. I met a kid who was 14 years old, had $8 million already earned from developing video games. And his mother was worried about him not finishing high school. I thought, oh my God.
But this is another thing, right? Like at the moment in the media, there's studies about, the effects of video gaming on your children and, children being too much in front of television. And, I want to balance that in our household too, because I can see sometimes a conflict that comes in from that and the children's behaviour when they are in front of the TV for too long, balance that out with being out in nature. So what I found really interesting this weekend is you spoke about your son, and I love what you did with him in regards to gaming and then basically taking away all his comfort so that you can
make a decision of whether or not it's really a mission.
Share that with us.
Yeah.
Can you
Well,
share about that with
my
us?
son is, since he was very young, at 6 years old, he's been doing video games.
Yes.
So he's 29 now, just about. So 23 years he's been doing video games. And he loves that. And he knew he wanted to do that. And anytime you try to get him away from that, you can see him just moping around. He loves video games.
Yes.
But some people say, well, oh my God, he's addicted to video games. What's it's going to damage his life and all that stuff. He loves video games.
Right.
So I told him, I said, look, if you make a living out of this and you make a career out of it, because I started doing an investigation, I found out some people were making millions out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, they were massive business. I'm taking him to Tokyo in September to where the headquarters of video games are and meeting him with some amazing people. And he can't wait to go. And so this is his life. And I didn't do that. I didn't relate to that. I don't watch video games. But I actually did a couple of video games with him. One was Journey, which is interesting. And it's about finding your way through all these obstacles to get to the top of the mountain where there was enlightenment. And it was a journey about our own life, really. And when I did that, I was going, okay, some of these games are not what I thought. There were some really amazing things, and they're challenging all of your paradigms about how you get through and navigate problems. And so there's value to some of these games. So when I did that, and I said, if you make a living out of it, fabulous. But if you're just doing it to escape, that's not going to cut it, because sooner or later, life's going to make you have to, go to work and do things. So I basically put him sort of on the streets and basically said, well, now you have nothing. You have no resources. Do you still want to do video games? And he thought of creative ways of how he can make a living doing that. You can see that's what he wasn't an escape, it was his mission. So I said, well, let's go make that happen then. And so now he's doing it. He's got followers and he's growing, and every month he's coming up with new creative ideas, and he's getting more courageous at it, and in the future he's going to be making great money doing what he loves doing.
And that's what I think is so important as parents to understand. I love what you did. Like, something in me lit up when you talked about that, because you didn't just shut down his dream and say video games are bad for you and this is not what I want you to do and I think this would be better for you, your values onto him. I love the way that you basically took away his comforts and allowed him to get creative enough that if that is important enough to him, he went and found his own ways.
Yeah.
And you didn't, as a parent either, go, oh, you love video games, so let me see ways that I can help you.
Well, I've helped him. I helped him by doing this. I ask him questions.
Yes.
So I ask him, so who are the people out there that are doing the greatest in business in the video games? And what are they doing?
Yes.
And what is the difference between you and them? And what are the plans of action to get to that goal if that's what you're striving to get to? I ask him questions.
But you don't do it for him.
I don't do it for him.
The challenge as parents, and what I see in parenting today, is where parents are doing so much for their children, so comfortable that their children are not going out there and being challenged to come up with the answers and the motivation for themselves to actually really ascertain whether this is a value
Well,
of theirs or not.
your creative solutions come when you're challenged by things that inspire you. So every time you're doing something that's really high in your value and you're pursuing inspirational challenges, that's where innovation and creativity and genius come. And so when he knows he's got a deadline, he's got to really think. He's got this girlfriend, right? He's taking her to Iceland.
Is he going to be okay with you sharing this?
Yeah, no, he's going to Iceland.
Awesome.
And so in the process of doing it, in fact, it's just a matter of a few days he's leaving. He's going to Iceland. Now, he's never backpacked in Iceland before. So he has no idea what he's doing. So he did a lot of research and things like this, and what are the repercussions, and he made sure he had some capital reserve on the side from saving him from working. He's done some work with me on the side to help me with projects, just so he can go on this trip, because he wants to take her on this experience to Iceland. And that's her thing. And there's something about some video, I'm not sure what it is, but there's one video that's involved in Iceland. So he wants to go and find this great place that's actually, they filmed this thing. That's what he wants to do. So he's working for it. He's looked at all the things. He made a list of all the pros and cons and what happens with it. And we'll see how he does. And he put a little cash reserve on the side. So he's making sure that he's got worst case scenarios handled. And it's great. He's got challenge. And if he has something that challenges him, inspires him, that's where his creativity comes from. If you make it too easy for them, they don't have any challenge. They lose their drive. So when they're two, they don't have their company, make them go on their own, start their company. I'm joking.
You talk about that. No, I'm not. I just started a company with my 6-year-old. So I'm a yoga teacher in childcare centres where I go in and, teach children as young as 2 about yoga and breathing and coming back into their body and all that sort of stuff. And my 6-year-old, his name is Logan. So we've actually reconstructed the business around him to call it Logie the Yogi. And he's so proud of that. And he comes to my yoga classes on Monday night with his brother. They're part of that. They love helping. They love putting out the mats. They love, and I think it was part of both of our values. Like, I've always loved doing this, but then seeing him light up when he does it. Like,
inspires you.
Yeah, inspires me. And then I, in turn, inspire him. And I love having them as part of my business and kind of, getting inspired that to follow your dream and go out and do the things that you want to do. Just because you're a parent, it doesn't mean you're chained to be at home to, just serve your children or serve your husband. Like, there's more to it than that, and following your own passion. And, I just hope that it gives them permission then to do the things that they want. My 8-year-old asked me to take him away so we can write a book together, because he just can sit there for ages, folding paper, drawing, writing, coming up with stories. So that's something I would like to do with him as well.
Well, sometimes these things at a very young age, they know what they want to do, and sometimes a little later. Some people don't figure that out their whole life. They just kind of go with the flow of what other people expect from them.
But do you think it's that they haven't figured it out, or do you think that they did not have the support when they were young? Because I have this belief that children actually know so much more than we give them credit for.
I believe that. But I don't know that sometimes they've been told, not so much support, they get support in other ways, but not necessarily encouraged to go after their dream.
Yes.
That's something.
Yes.
Because sometimes the parents' fears are being projected onto the child. And sometimes what we call caring is just a projection of fears, yes. Our own wounds. Yes. And then we're trying to protect them from our own fears. And they don't even have those fears sometimes.
Yes, I've seen that happen with us.
When I was, when my daughter Brescia was young, we joked when she came out, she had high heels on, but...
the fashion designer, yeah.
So what happened when she was very young, she got mommy's shoes on and clothes and everything else, and she was modeling and doing runway things. By the time she was probably 4, I sometimes lived at the Westin Hotel, and sometimes they would be with me. And in Houston, in the Galleria, and there's lots of coutures there. So we walk up and down the thing, and she'd run in the coutures and pick out clothes for the people in the clothes and say, no, you look good in that, and like this. She's 4. And the people go, who in the heck is this person? And I used to say, Brescia, she'd go running off, and I'd have to hold on to her like a leash or something. And because she just had to go to couture stores. And so she had the highest taste, and she'd go in there and she'd pick outfits out at 4. They kind of blew people's minds and go, yeah, I like that. And she was helping these people sell, so the people were actually looking forward to have her come in there, because like she was making novel and making people buy stuff. But she's had a love for that, and then she started designing, and then she came to MIT in Melbourne to do design here, fashion design. And that's what she does. She does fashion design. She just did a deal with Mark Wahlberg recently in fashion. So she does amazing stuff, and she just got a 5,000 piece collection from the original Versace things they did that they found. So she's amazing, and my suits and my clothes come from my daughter.
I love the way, if I could use this maybe, like show that off. Like, I just love that balance, and I think that's where, for me, being at one of your seminars, oh my gosh, 2-3 years ago, you presented with, just trying to think, Tyler Tolman was at the front row, anyway, like I just remember her, and I remember her being in the front row, and
Yeah.
I just remember your face, and I remember the energy between you two, and I was just like, it is just so beautiful. And I must admit, like in this industry, sometimes there's a lot of people I come across where on stage, I feel like they say one thing, but then the energy of how they're living it is a bit different. And I felt that connection and that congruence. And I remember asking you, like, how did you, as a parent, you can see it's so evident that she lived in her values and you supported that and nourished that.
Well, I can't say that every single moment she ever did anything. I didn't always support everything. I used to get a few times when I want to choke her, but because sometimes she'd do some crazy stuff. But who didn't?
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
if we
But
put
that's-
on,
if
if I
that
made a list of all
balance-
this crazy stuff I did as a teenager, it'd be a story. But that's just part of it. My other daughter's, traveling the world and teaching with me, so
Yes.
I can't complain. I got one of them that's carrying on the torch, and they all work in my company now,
Yeah.
but they're also doing their own businesses.
Yeah, that's
But
wonderful.
if they still like helping people know about this work.
That's wonderful. That's just, I really love that. I just love that. I think it's it's an inspiration, and it's a lot we can learn from that, I believe. So I'm just going to ask you, what golden nugget advice could you share with parents then? We kind of covered it a little bit, but in helping their children excel. So, everybody kind of wants the best for their children. And what I've learned as well now is part of allowing my children to excel is allowing them to fail and learn how to fall and get back up again.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing in the space that I'm in a bit of an epidemic with a lot of anxiety in children rising. Children as young as 5 having anxiety. And I kind of go, where is all this coming from? What purpose is this serving? How can we help our children, like set them up to excel, to get through this in their life?
I think the first thing is something Albert Einstein said, the greatest teacher is exemplification. So if we go out and exemplify an inspired life and live by your highest priority, that's the greatest thing we can do for them. If we're going around saying, live by high priority and not do ourselves, their mirror neurons and their little mimicking and little chameleon effect is going to pick up us, and there's going to be an incongruency. Yeah. So you got to walk your talk. If you're walking your talk as a parent, it's higher probability that they're going to do the same for them in life. So I want to make a live an inspired life. I want to do what I designed. I want to master plan my life and lay out my life the way I want to. They're doing the same. So that's one. And then the other is finding out what they really are inspired by, what's truly inspiring to them, and help them learn to fill their day with really priority things. Because their self-worth goes up every time they live by priority. And every time they do, they give themselves permission to tackle more challenging things. And it's pursuing challenges that inspire you and solving challenges that inspire you that makes greatness. So anything you can do to get them onto priority and do that, and educate them on that and just live that. But the best education is living it. Best thing I can say. And ask them questions.
So is this how they get away with not cleaning their room, because that's not a high priority?
Well, that's an interesting thing. Now, this is a very interesting paradox. I don't clean my room.
Okay.
I delegate that because
Is that from when you were that young though?
When I was young, sometimes I didn't clean my room, and I had to clean my room. My parents had to get me to clean my room because they would sometimes make tents out of it, and I do all kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, before I went to bed, it had to be put back together.
Yeah.
But we sometimes get the idea where we were in our socioeconomics, we sometimes impose that belief onto our kids. But I know a 13-year-old kid starting around age 10 going on 11 that started their own business and started making enough money to hire people to do all that. So I don't want to make it where you program into thinking you got to do manual labor, you got to do cleaning, you got to do this, you got to do that. If that's not their dream, if they're willing to do the things that produce and hire somebody to do that, give them power to do it. So I'm going to say that I would rather say it this way. I'd say anything that you're not willing to work for, to earn, and to delegate, you'll be doing, because those things are accountable. So if you can get on with doing something that's meaningful in service, like I started my company when I was 9. I had 9 employees when I was 9 years old. And I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I want to earn some money to buy a baseball and a glove and a bat. And he said, fine. Did you mow the yard? Yep. Did you edge the yard? Yep. Did you clean the sidewalk? Yep. Did you sweep the garage? Yep. Did you trim the hedges? Yep. Did you weed the flower beds? Yep. Did you clean the gutters? Yep. Did you shine the shoes? Yep.
Okay.
Son, I have nothing else I need done, so if you want to get something done, you're going to have to go to the neighbors, see if there's any projects you can do. So I went down a couple doors down to the Evans house, and I saw an unruly house and yard, and I said, if I was to do all this, would you like me to do that? And they said, yeah, how much? And I went, ooh, I didn't think of that. And I came up with a number, and they said, that sounds fair. And I spent the day doing it, and I got blisters and bee stings and all kind of stuff, but I made a lot of money. And then I bought all this stuff, and my dad said, well, you got to pay for the use of the equipment. He made me accountable and pay for the gas. And I went, ooh, I spent the money already. So I had to go out and do a few more to get the money to pay him back. And then I realized that there was a kid walking down the street that I said, would you like to mow the yard and make some money? And he goes, sure. So I got 3 kids doing the yards and doing things. And I was closing the deals in the neighborhoods. And they were working it. And I had 9 kids. And I got 2 other families to loan the equipment and pay them. And I ended up with $45 after all costs done, $45 in a day in 1963. And my dad saw that I was doing it, and I was buying all kinds of stuff. I bought a buzz bike from Western Auto. I bought a golf set. I bought all this stuff. My dad said, well, you're spending all your money. You need to learn to save and invest. And so, well, I didn't know anything about that. So he bought me a piggy bank and a coin collection set, and I started putting money in there. In my office in Houston, Texas, on the 52nd floor of Williams Tower, in the credenza, is the original piggy bank from 1963 with the original coins that I collected there. They're rare collectors now. And I never got he never gave me the combination or way of opening this thing. I stuck them all in there and I couldn't get them out. So it's there as a reminder to think long term and to build wealth. So I'm very grateful for my dad. And then he started charging me for food, clothing, and rent. He says, I want you to face the realities of what life is going to have. The sooner you do, the more mature you're going to be and the most thing. So I started paying for clothing, food, and rent. He says, and he gave me freedom to go on my new bicycle that I bought anywhere I wanted to go. And he tested me with more accountability is more freedom. More accountability is freedom. And I had learning difficulties. I had dyslexia and I couldn't read. Didn't read till I was 18. So he wanted to make sure I was street smart and savvy and little entrepreneur to make it in the world. Because I didn't have the ability to read. I couldn't make sense of that thing. I wrote backwards and did all kinds of stuff. So I'm grateful for my dad to helping me take on accountabilities and responsibilities that most kids didn't get to have. And it's amazing the difference I excelled through because of it.
So that just brings me to my point. Like as a mother, I sometimes think about this because I had quite a, I wouldn't say difficult upbringing, but I was born in Lebanon and I grew up in a war zone. But my mum made us feel quite safe. But, there was a lot going on around us. And we migrated to Australia when I was 10. And I feel because of that experience, I am who I am. Like I have so much gratitude for that period of my life and the way that I appreciate life. I guess it's given me fuel to do a lot of the stuff that I do, yeah? And my children are born here. They don't have to face any of these sort of things, right? So sometimes I get in my mind, that's why I kind of go like, it's okay for our children to fail and learn how to get back up again. Do you think that with your dad in telling you needed to pay rent and food and do this, do you feel like that sparked like your entrepreneurial side, or do you think that you already had that as part of your
I just had goals to get done, and I wanted to get them done, and if I couldn't get them through working in my own house, because I did all the homework, and not homework, but yard work, I did everything. So I had no place to go. I couldn't pay me. He didn't want to pay me for nothing, because he didn't think that was fair. So you got to pay for something. So if there's nothing else I can do, you're going to have to go to the neighbors. So I went up and down the neighbors, and I served a lot of people in the neighborhood. They got rid of some of their yard men because of me. I took over that position. Did a better job, and I did a hell of a hedge clipping and weeding and stuff, and did a better job than anybody else.
And that was at the age of 9?
Yeah, 9. And so I always learned I could do that, even when I was, later on. And I'm glad. My dad made me an entrepreneur in some respects by giving me accountabilities. So I try to do that with my kids. I try to do that. I have a friend I was just with the other day, and she has a son who is, I think, 9. I think he's 9 now. And everything he does, he has to save a portion of it. He has to donate a portion of it. He has to pay certain bills. She's already teaching him how to do all the financial things. He's extremely savvy about it. He has his own bank account. He's got an investment account, everything else. He's 9. He's got his stuff together. And most kids don't learn that. I just had a conversation on Skype the other day into Canada of a lady who trains youth in schools throughout Canada on how to become financially savvy, how the banking system, the financial systems work. Because most kids just take it for granted. They just spend their money, they blow their money, they have no savings. And then when they get older, they're responsible with money because they never learned how to do it. No, and their parents weren't. Their parents are broke. Their parents, only 1% become financially independent. So these parents are passing on this thing, and it just goes generation to generation. So she's educating them. I think that's brilliant.
Educating the children and the parents and the children.
She's educating the children, and then the parents are getting in on to helping that, and they all get in on it.
Yes.
Why not? All my kids have savings programs, and they have to work. They don't work, they don't get money.
Yeah. And how young do you recommend parents?
Well, before they come out of the womb, you got to get them right from the beginning. When you get out, you got a payroll to meet. You know, I'm joking. No, you can do that at a very young age. My dad used to give me a quarter for shining shoes back years ago when I was very young, 3 or 4 or something like that. I'd shine shoes, quarter. And he says, now you got to realize that at least % of that has to go savings. So we had to have money put away. We had to put a nickel away. And he was trying to teach me at a very young age. So I'm glad. I mean, he taught me, but I still didn't really apply that. I really didn't really apply that until I got married and had a bunch of responsibilities. Then I started realizing, okay, now I understand the purpose of this. But I did it, but I didn't always really understand the whole picture of it.
Yes, yes.
So I think accountability has helped people.
I feel like we could talk all night. I love your wisdom. I think we'll wrap it up though for now. I know you've got a lot of work to do, a lot of international stuff, and I just want to thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you
for all that you do. I want to see you for many, many, many more years doing all of this. I'll definitely be at more of your programs, but if you would like to find out about Dr. John Demartini, his website, johndemartini.com.
Well, it's drdemartini.com, drdemartini.com, DEMARTINI.com, drdemartini.com.
I'll have all that information.
And there's a ton of information you can go and read and learn and spend your life learning on.
And I really do recommend for all parents to do your values list. You've got that for free on your website.
Yes.
It is such an invaluable tool.
They use that now in 20 universities in Tokyo and in Japan. All the guidance counselors are using that and these 20 universities, and it's really made a difference because it helps a person identify what's really valuable to them so they can guide according to what's intrinsically valuable to them, not what society expects. Because a lot of people wake up in their 40s or 50s and go, ooh, midlife crisis, I've been living for everybody else. What's really true for me? And there you have an identity crisis.
Yes.
So find out at an early age. It just gives momentum building for their life.
Yes, 100%. Thank you. Thank you so much for all your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, if you're, just know that your children have a natural yearning to do extraordinary things and to make a difference. They already know that. I mean, I've spoken to 500, 1,000 kids, and every one of them have a yearning to want to make a difference, even at extremely young ages. So it's been inborn and innate. It's us not undermining it.
Yes.
It's basically giving them permission to do something extraordinary in their life. And the greatest thing we can do is go do something extraordinary with our lives. That's the best thing we can do for our kids, I think. It's not so much what we say, it's what we do.
100% agree with you. And I'm learning that every day. They mirror so much of what they do. They remind me, they pull me back.
Yeah, spooky. Yeah, you'll see them do things exactly like you do. All your quirks. But still, it's still part of the perfection.
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my God, that was gorgeous.